Hey there, my name is Megan and welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing a book review for The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell. I am going to be discussing spoilers in this book, so please make sure you're checking the timestamps down below if you don't want to be spoiled. The way I structure my reviews is I talk about what the book is about, the things I liked, the things that I didn't like, and then I give the book an overall rating and tell you if I think you should read it. So if you're interested in skipping to any one of those particular sections, also check the timestamps down below. The Family Upstairs is an adult thriller, and it is the first book by Lisa Jewell I've ever read. I found it at a used bookstore and grabbed it because I have seen her name around the thriller genre, and I think she's a pretty prominent author in this genre. And I just want to preface this by saying that I have only been reading thrillers for a couple of years now. I've probably read less than 15. So my experience with reading this genre is not as expansive per se as fantasy or science fiction. So just take that with a grain of salt when I'm doing these reviews. However, I really do love a good thriller book. So as I read more and more of them, hopefully my reviews can become more objective. In The Family Upstairs, we are following 5 different perspectives. And the first one is Libby. And Libby is known as the baby because 25 years ago, she was found in this house, not just any old house, but this huge mansion in a very affluent part of London. And she was found alone, and there were 3 other adults that were inside the house, and they were found dead, poisoned. And there was also rumors that 4 other children, older children, lived in the house too, but when the police came and found the dead adults and the baby, there were no children to be found, and they never surfaced or anything like that. So fast forward 25 years later, and Libby is believed to be the daughter of the 2 owners of the house, and as their only living heir that they know of, the house was put into trust for her, and when she turns 25, she can gain ownership of the house. So what Libby is most concerned about is finding out the true story of what happened in that house, and if she can track down any of the children that were living there, which supposedly might be her siblings. To help her with this mystery, she enlists the help of this investigative journalist who had also been on the story 25 years ago, and he could never crack exactly what happened and had to give up his investigation. So he teams up with Libby, and together they try and put the pieces together. And then we are also following the other children that lived in the house and their points of views. And the way that this narrative is structured is that we have the different point of views, but then we also have a lot of flashbacks. So we might be in the head of one of the children, and the children is explaining from the beginning exactly how things came to be in this house. And all of these stories eventually lead up to the truth, where the adults were found dead because of a suicide pact. Now I'm going to talk about the things I liked about this book, and unfortunately, it's not a lot. Really, the only thing that I liked about this book was the pacing. So I both physically read this and audiobooked this, and the pacing was really, really well done. But we have these different characters and their point of views, and Lisa Jewell did a really good job about giving just enough information to progress the story without bogging the reader down. And she also had really, really short chapters. And just the way that she writes is very succinct and compact, and just enough to keep that fast pace, which I really appreciated. I ended up finishing this book in, I think, 3 days, maybe 2. So that was my goal. I just knew I would be able to get through it just because it's an easy read. I'm going to talk about the things that I disliked about this book, and I'm going to start off with non-spoilery dislikes. And the first one was that this is a thriller book, but I didn't find any part of this book overly suspenseful. And what I like in my thriller books is that creep factor, how the author develops a creepy and unsettling atmosphere. Ruth Ware is excellent at doing it. Riley Sager, Lucy Foley, they are such good writers when it comes to atmosphere, and I felt like this book just completely lacked that. Never at one point was I a little bit scared or on the edge of my seat about who done it or what's going to happen next. And for a thriller book, I just found it very not thrilling. Continuing on with non-spoilery things, I also felt like a lot of the characters' motivations, specifically David, was not discussed enough for me to believe that he was able to do the types of things that he did. We were not in the head of David, we were in the head of the children. David is the patriarch of the family that comes to live with Libby's family. this is before she's ever even born. The reason this book is called The Family Upstairs is that Libby's parents had a lot of money. And what ended up happening is that this family came to live with them. It was a husband and wife and 2 kids. So David, his wife Sally, their daughter Clemency, and their daughter Finn. And then they weren't the only family to join in this mansion. There was also a woman named Bertie and her partner named Justin, and they were part of a band. So it was just really odd how all of these different people were able to infiltrate this family. And they basically lived upstairs in this huge house. And they did it for a couple of reasons. So they did it for monetary reasons because Libby's family was losing money. And the father didn't work, so there was no way to replace it. The mother didn't work. And the father also ended up getting sick. He had a couple of strokes, and he just was not in a right state of health to lead the family. Now I'm going to go into some spoilery things that really delves into why I didn't like this book so much. So the first thing was that this kind of centered around a cult, but I don't like using that word because when I think cult, I think of like a big community of people. So what our antagonist David does, he is the patriarch of this other family, is he comes in and he infiltrates families and just destroys them. And he commandeers their wealth, he commandeers their women, he wants to have like, you know, multiple wives and multiple children and, you know, be in charge of everything. And he challenges anyone who challenges him. So for example, when his son Finn stands up to him or when Henry stands up to him, you know, they get beat and punished. So he's just a very like psychopathic guy. And the thing I had trouble with is, number one, I don't feel like David's motivations were ever told to the reader. Like, I wanted to know why he was doing what he did, how he was able to come in and completely brainwash this family, these grown adults. Like, for example, he completely made Henry's mother fall in love with him and get pregnant by him. Like, what grown woman could be so brainwashed to do that? Like, I wanted to know how David did that. Instead, we're getting the point of view of Henry, the son, who doesn't have that information. I just feel like that would have made this thriller so much more solid if we had understood David's motivations, been privy to that, especially like his tactics for brainwashing, because brainwashing is a creepy, disturbing thing. And I just felt like that would have added an extra level to the story if we got like into David's head to see why he was doing this and how he was doing this. I also really didn't like the ending when it came to Henry. I liked the ending when it came to Livy. I felt like, you know, that was kind of a sweet ending for her. But Henry was one of the main protagonists of the story. And, you know, he obviously had a traumatic childhood. And there were little, I guess, tidbits that Lisa Jewell left us that Henry was not really in his right mind. And he was in love with Finn, David's son. And he definitely had some behaviors that were unusual. And after they all dispersed and left the house, Henry tried to impersonate Finn because he wanted to be Finn. And it kind of reminded me of like The Talented Mr. Ripley. Like, those are the vibes I got from it. But then like in the last chapter at the end of the book, there's a scene where Henry realizes that Finn is alive and Libby is going to find Finn because Finn is technically Libby's father, not David. So she's going to find Finn, and then Henry's like, can I come? But we're in his head that he wants to harm Finn. And I just didn't see Henry as the antagonist in this book. David was the antagonist in this book. So Lisa Jewell just like added that little thing in at the end for no reason. And it just left the whole book off on like this dark note when it didn't have to be. I just felt it was unnecessary. All in all, my main gripes with this book was the lack of atmosphere for a thriller. It read more like a family genre. I really did like the characters. I really thought that their stories and their voices were unique, and it was just interesting to hear about their different experiences growing up in this house. I personally do not like stories that revolve any type of cultish behavior or cults in general. And that's what drug my enjoyment of this book down quite a bit. This is 100% a personal preference and has nothing to do with the author. I just don't want to read about that. In the end, I thought that The Family Upstairs was a fast-paced read. It was definitely weird and just not my type of book, and I really thought it suffered from lack of atmosphere and lack of really digging into the characters so that their actions were more believable. And I ended up giving this book a 2 out of 5 stars. Alright, you guys, let me know in the comments if you've read The Family Upstairs and what you thought of it, and I will see y'all in another video soon. Goodbye!